Welcome to Transform Now, the podcast brought to you by robotic process automation pioneer SS&C Blue Prism. Digital transformation has the potential to reshape the way companies service their customers, engage their employees, and manage their operations. Whether you're looking to develop strategies, tactics, or best practices to positively impact the future of work, or you're curious to see how other companies have successfully navigated their digital transformation programs, then this podcast is for you. We're here to help you transform now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brad Hairston with SS&C Blue Prism. Welcome to the Transform Now podcast. Today, I'm excited to have as my guest Xavier Hanson from Reveal Group, an SS&C Blue Prism partner. Xavier and I will be discussing how intelligent automation is evolving, especially with regard to GenAI. And also, we'll talk about what we can expect in 2024. Xavier, thank you for joining me. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and provide an overview of Reveal Group.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, well, I actually might do that one in reverse. Might be a bit easier to place me in Reveal Group.
All right.
Describe it. So, these days, Reveal Group is a pure play intelligent automation. So we help clients transform their processes using a whole bunch of digital tools, Blue Prism being one of the primary one, to help get better value out of their operations and also start to look towards how you can use intelligent automation to generate new revenue, new products, and all that sort of thing, which is really exciting. So yeah, pure play. Our history actually, we've been around for 17 years. And prior to the rise of RPA and intelligent automation, we were an operational excellence company. So have always been around, focused on efficiency. We used to do it with the lean way. Now, the reason I tell that, because we'll probably talk today a little bit about how to approach solving some of these problems. And our history and pedigree really had led us to be a process first company. And we picked the right tools to make them more efficient. So that's sort of where we come from. My role in that, I started 9 years ago, around the time that we met Blue Prism as an organization, and we started to convert ourselves into that intelligent automation firm. Myself, I'm actually located in New York, and I run the sort of US side of the business, and also am the practice lead for Blue Prism at Reveal Group. So yeah, we're now headquartered in the US and in New York. So that's the primary sort of geography we operate in, but we are a global organization.
Very good. Well, Xavier, you've been on the podcast before, and
when I had longer hair.
Yeah, longer hair. You're looking a little bit more clean cut these days. I should also thank you for doing a live podcast with me last month at our event in Toronto. It was a great conversation, although nobody heard it. Well, at least not the first half of it. We had a few technical difficulties, but I guarantee you this podcast conversation will be heard loud and clear.
Jamie Fisher, who's one of the other partners at Reveal Group, he lamented the fact that he wasn't going to be standing in the background for this one. So we'll have to figure out how to get some video at one point to put him in.
That's right. So Xavier, what has enabled Reveal Group to have so much success in the intelligent automation sector? You gave some great data points there on your company and how long you've been around and how you've modified the company's approach over time. You have had significant growth. You've been recognized by clients and Blue Prism as well for excellent delivery results. So what's the secret to your success?
Yeah, I think there's a few things in there. Number one is we really partner with our clients, right? We're not into to make a quick buck and leave. We really focus on building capability within the organizations we work with so that the programs we build around intelligent automation are self-sustaining and can scale that ongoing value. Whether we're there or not, we want to make sure that we leave that success behind. So that partnership has been a huge part of our success. And obviously that comes from the client success. And that you're sort of acknowledging a little bit there, but our customer satisfaction scores are extremely high. It's in the 96+%, which we pride ourselves on. And then, the way that success has come about is our focus on quality, making sure that we are the best in breed when it comes to standards and approaches to delivering intelligent automation. We're disciples of the ROM, I like to describe us as then making sure that we're building scalable programs for our clients. We've also built a bunch of accelerated tools around intelligent automation. So we have code review tools. We have tools that will take your design documentation and generate a whole bunch of the skeleton of what you need to build to, improve efficiencies there. But also it
Mhm.
means that we're consistent. If you get one group of Reveal Group RPA devs, we want to make sure that the next group who come in, you're going to get the same kind of quality. And so we've had to build a lot of structure and tools around that to ensure that, because in a market where there's a bunch of GSIs out there who are much bigger, we have to make our
Mhm.
name in consistency and quality and partnering with clients. So that's how we've done it. And big nod to the quality of the people at Reveal Group. We have an incredible team, and we spend a lot of time and effort developing each one of them to be multi-skilled, to be able to engage with our business users and build trust and confidence, and then deliver a high quality product, which ultimately helps our clients move forward.
Okay. In terms of market maturity, does Reveal Group still encounter companies today who are just beginning their automation journey, or are most of your clients already down the road quite a bit, but looking to take that next step to extend
Wow.
automation, into new areas, leverage AI, that type of thing?
Yeah. It's a bit of a tale of organizational size. Enterprise clients, yeah, they've sort of bought into RPA, and they kind of have to at this point. So very rarely do you come across a large top 100, top 500 kind of customer who hasn't got some intelligent automation. Now, whether that's
Mhm.
a scaled program and they're getting as much value out of the tool as they should, that's probably a separate line of questioning. But when it comes to awareness of intelligent automation and dabbling in it, very rarely do we come across companies that size who don't. And kind of what you were getting at, the next tranche of work for those groups who are more mature is, how do you get the next layer of value, right? They've hit the end of the low hanging fruit that everybody was marketed to five,
Mhm.
6 years ago around, here's all the easy stuff, that the pushing data around processes, a lot of those are gone. How do you develop both a pipeline and a capability in your pipeline team to find more complex opportunities? And then how do you solve those complex opportunities? Big business value is where those guys are heading. So applying intelligent document processing, applying natural language understanding, applying GenAI, that now that we've gotten to the large language model space, in the right places, in the right processes to get that value. The middle market and smaller organizations, some have got into intelligent automation, and some have done a
Mhm.
really great job. At a company or an organization that size is, say, sub 1 billion, let's say, you
Mhm.
can ostensibly build your entire organization around automation. And we've seen that with a couple of organizations.
Mhm.
There's plenty of case studies on our website around that have literally half their workforce is digital workers. And now they can, do twice as much volume as they could before with a smaller
Mhm.
footprint. So I think the impact you can have in those smaller organizations is much greater with intelligent automation, just because of the size and the spread of labor.
Mhm.
But then that's that also the place where we come across organizations who've never heard of intelligent automation, or if they have heard of it, they've never taken that first step. So how we
Mhm.
can help them over that lump and really get into it. The benefit they have coming in this late is that a lot of the really deep lessons have been learned. There's a lot of good
Yeah.
structures around particularly core RPA and getting that going. And once you've got that good bedrock of RPA, and you can do that
Mhm.
much faster now than you could before, then it's about talking about some of those advanced capabilities and all that sort of thing.
Okay. For those less mature customers that are ready to go beyond basic RPA, what are some of the key partners or technologies that you are leveraging to help them take that step? I know you partner with a lot of best of breed companies, but what are a few that you could do a shout out to that
Sure.
are really helping you evolve and mature these customers?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't be a good friend of Blue Prism if I didn't mention document automation and Decipher. We use those quite a bit, I think, in the intelligent document processing space. If anyone who's worked in intelligent automation, and people even who haven't or aren't familiar with it, it's a lot more use case based on that side of the world when it comes to looking at case studies and use cases. So there
Mhm.
are certain tools really good at handwriting, and certain tools are really good at invoice processing and all that sort of thing. So we sort of rank them in there. But yeah, the main ones that we work with intelligent document processing are document automation, Decipher, Hyperscience, and Abby are sort of the main ones there.
Mhm.
Those we can effectively cover the use cases thrown at us to extract and categorize and classify. Expert AI, we're working with in natural language understanding and natural language processing. Excellent tool, far more specialized than your LLMs and all that sort of thing. And they have
Mhm.
a lot of pre-trained models, particularly around healthcare insurance, that are really powerful. So working with those guys to, again, understand things like plain text emails or contracts or things like that. A lot of medical records and doctor's notes and that sort of thing. So really powerful tool. And then obviously when it comes to large language models, we've got Sort of in early stages. I wouldn't say it's partnership, but in terms of dabbling with a few of them, OpenAI, ChatGPT, obviously one, that's the
Hmm.
one that's the hot thing at the moment and seems to be the most performant from our testing, but also Llama, which is Llama 2, which is Meta's one. And we're on the beginning sort of trajectory of working with some of the Amazon LLMs as well. And again, we suspect quite similar to IDP, what we're finding early is there'll be use cases where each one shines until they're sort of more mature as well.
Hmm. In terms of scaling programs, because I know that's another kind of core competency of Reveal's, helping companies get grounded and then mature their automation, but then really truly scale it across functions, across business units, that type of thing. What do you find are the biggest obstacles your clients face with regard to advancing and scaling their automation program?
Good question. Probably a handful of things. Pipeline. And when I say pipeline, I mean looking for opportunities to automate, looking for opportunities for efficiency where intelligent automation can be helpful. Finding those opportunities, categorizing them, trying to size them so that you understand the value they're going to produce in a fashion that is expedient, but also gives you a good level of confidence that what's in the pipeline is actually going to be automated. It's very easy for somebody to come in and say, oh, we can save 20% of your, operating budget by automating without actually getting into the detail. So finding
Mhm.
that balance of level of detail in your pipeline, have confidence that the value is there, and also you'll be able to do it fast. So that's a big one. Second one is, and this is probably a bit more on the larger organization side of things, but certainly when you're starting out, getting buy-in from your different lines of business. Because ultimately, this is a
Mm.
tool that serves the business, and a lot of the successfully scaled programs has some form of either business paying for the transformation or at least pitching in and all that sort of thing, renting developers, if you will. So you have to get buy-in from the top of those lines of business, and you do that by treating them like customers. If you have some sort of central design authority, if you have a central capacity, making
Mhm.
sure that you treat those business units as customers. And the clients who really struggle with scale kind of get stuck as an island and they can't quite break into those business units. So
Mhm.
trying to help get engagement from those groups and all that sort of thing, that then obviously kicks in your pipeline and that sort of stuff too. What I expect to happen, and those are two of the main ones. There's one other one probably as well, I'll say, which is on the technology side, the platform side, not the software itself, so not Blue Prism, but more the infrastructure it's built on. If you don't build it right, first place, and I'm not saying you have to build this huge, data center somewhere, but making sure that the way you design the infrastructure makes it easier to scale, makes it easier to manage and maintain, has high uptime, all that sort of thing is really important because the one thing that can handbrake and completely stop your entire automation program is that platform if you don't have it right. So making sure
Mm.
you've got that right as well. And I think going forward, a challenge we're going to see, and this probably comes towards more of a trend in 2024, but how do you, now that things are much more complex when it comes to looking for those opportunities and delivering on them, how do you find the talent for it and
Mhm.
build the capability for it?
You mentioned one thing there, Xavier, that I want to follow up on. Many automation centers of excellence get going, they build momentum, and then they lose their connectivity to the business because the initial sponsor has moved on. And you mentioned that that's one of the roles Reveal Group plays, helping the COE get engaged to other parts of the business. What are your methods for helping them do that?
Yeah. Depends on the business leader, but we'll typically start with a bit of a roadshow, right? We can talk about
Yeah.
successes we've already had in the business, the kind of value generated, the time it took to generate that value, what the cost and all that sort of stuff to get into the numbers and the nitty gritty, but also share. Again, if we're working with clients, then we've helped them build out a lot of their operating model thinking and standards
Mhm.
and set up those frameworks, building confidence with those business units that all of that stuff is in place, but at a high level, how that works, how they're going to be involved. Communications and visibility throughout the entire thing is so important to these business units because they don't want this to be a black box. So how to give those assurances. So there's a lot of assurances and confidence building and credibility building. Then also follow that up with, okay, here's the value that this actually produces. It's real value. It's in production. It's working. CFO signed off on it, that sort of thing. And then potentially doing some sort of, in the early stages, you're not going to be able to build a pipeline of 12 months of work with this new group. It's where do we start? Let's find some pain point that's going to be highly visible to the rest of the business unit that they'll understand because it's working with systems and processes they know, and also shows enough value that, oh, this is something we should be using a little bit more. And then you start to get that kind of train rolling. It's frankly not too different to how we reveal and approach a new client, it's just treating that like
Mm-hmm.
an internal customer and an internal client.
Yeah,
That month.
that makes a lot of sense. Well, let's talk Gen AI. I
What's that?
know Reveal Group has been extremely active in this space, helping companies figure out the best way to leverage it in their process automations. Where would you say most of your customers are with regard to Gen AI here at the beginning of 2024?
They're under a lot of pressure to use an AI in some way, shape, or
Mm-hmm.
form, right? Their executive or their board or someone has pointed to them and said, "You're an intelligent automation group. Figure out what Gen AI is. We need to be seen to be doing something with it," right? Like that's my cynical version, of how this is all rolling out. But you need to come from that side and understand that is what people are being asked to do, and therefore, how do you guide them through that to make sure that is being achieved, so that they are seen as successful, but doing it without potentially creating a lot of false expectations that are met. So I'd say that there's a lot of pressure around it internally, a lot of these organizations, and where they're at, most of the organizations are in the early stage of understanding, right? It's the tools themselves developed quickly to now and are continuing to develop quickly. So trying to keep up with how they work and all that sort of thing is really difficult, but also understanding where to use it within your organization. I think Blue Prism do a really good job of sort of framing how you can apply generative AI. There's the idea of making you better at delivering automations. So build it into Blue Prism itself, the co-pilot type thing. You've got the how do you build use cases around it? So how can you make processes more efficient with it? And then also how can you apply it to data and analytics on the back end to drive insights that would usually take a lot of work and analytics? You can actually use Gen AI to do it. So most organizations are sitting in that middle group where we're trying to think of how do we use Gen AI to make our processes more efficient? And I would say the preponderance of use cases our clients are coming up with themselves surround that chatbot style work, where it's, I want an answer. I've got my employee handbook and I want to know what my leave policy is. Talk to the internal chatbot and it'll go and pull that out. That is a lot of the stuff we're seeing. The question is how much value is that generating,
Mm-hmm.
and how you calculate value around that is something that's difficult. And I don't think our clients have really figured that out yet either.
Yeah. We're definitely seeing the same things, including the pressure point that you mentioned. In fact, some companies would appear to be rushing to do a pilot of a use case that when you look at it, it may not even really require Gen AI. It's something that automation in its base form can address. And I'm sure you're seeing that as well.
We've been caught up in it. We've had to deliver something who said, we don't need Gen AI for this. And they told us we had to use. So that was one of
Yeah.
those situations. So yeah, exactly that.
Yeah. And I agree also on your point about using it as kind of a digital assistant. I think most of our customers, it would seem, they're opening it up to their employees as a first step.
Yep.
And I've seen reports and analysts write-ups that suggest that can improve productivity right away, which is not hard to understand. But how they use it in their process automations, that seems to be taking a little bit more time to formulate in their brains. But I'm starting to see some momentum there. I don't know if you're seeing the same thing, but kind of honing in on those high value use cases that can really make a difference. Now, part of what I'm also seeing, and I want to talk about this with you, is the whole prompt engineering aspect to Gen AI. So you can make a query to Gen AI and get a result, even a pretty remarkable result, a pretty simple query. But what the experts are proving is that you need to be more precise and there needs to be more methodology around how you prompt. And sometimes it means putting a lot more information in there that you would normally put, or it also may involve asking multiple questions that build on each other. So, Xavier, tell us your thoughts on prompt engineering.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, it's a lucrative career, I would say. I don't know if you've looked on LinkedIn lately, but
Yeah.
if you're a prompt engineer, you can get pretty good work. Look, there's a few things in there, right? So these LLMs, especially the commercial ones that you're seeing in the market, they're built for people, the human interaction. They're built to be quick questions and all that sort of thing. The power in them we've seen, and what I think people are beginning to realize is they are very good at structuring unstructured data, which is not a problem we've been able to solve with technology, basically since this whole thing started. Now, that means that the prompts that you put into them have to be very different for that use case, because the prompts that people think about aren't looking for the same level of output that you are when you're trying to structure an unstructured data problem, right? So to your point, the prompts have to be very specific and build over time. What you have to be wary of with this stuff is I can put the same prompt into an LLM 3 or 4 times in a row and ask for the same information on the same data set and get different answers. And that is a real challenge to solve. They're extremely powerful, but also there's a whole bunch of things that you would expect from the typical automation tool that you use in terms of output that doesn't happen with LLMs that you need to build around. So when it comes to prompts and all that sort of thing, the prompt's important. How you run that prompt is important, but then how you measure the output based on the changes in the prompts and the consistency of the output based on the prompt being repeated over and over is something that's so, so important. It's not just the prompts themselves, it's what output you're getting with this sort of stuff because it can be different. So I think having measures in place around that, how to test that, how to tweak the settings in the back end of whatever LLM you're using to get that secret sauce right. That's the key to solving a lot of the unstructured data problems, especially in the short term as we get going with ChatGPT.
That's a super interesting point you make there. The fact that you could prompt it the same way multiple times and get different outputs each time. But as a prediction engine that is taking in a lot of different types of data and also even feeding off of prompts themselves, you could see how it could change even within a single automation where you're hitting it multiple times, the answer could change. So, wow, that's a really intriguing thing to try to get your arms around.
Yeah. And look, I mean, let me talk specifically about ChatGPT. ChatGPT is not good at math. Like you can ask it what's 1 plus 1 and it'll give you statistically what it thinks the best answer is. It won't actually do the calculation. Like that's how these things work.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to doing that calculation, if you dial the creativity slider all the way up, it might give you an answer that is at 2 because it's kind of letting the statistical analysis that it does, it's throwing the net a bit broader in terms of what it pulls back. You can turn that all the way the other way. So if you want to try to get consistency, it's called temperature in ChatGPT world. You can turn that temperature right down and get more consistency and less creativity. So it's not going to be able to write your job description anymore because it's very straight. You've turned the creativity down. But if you're trying to interpret data and put it into columns, that's actually something you want. So very, very important there. And then what we've started to do when it comes to kind of trying to solve that problem, we have a whole bunch of statistical analysis tools that we've been using for IDP and natural language understanding, leverage start distance, Sierra Winkler. There's about, I think, 10 that we apply in the current sort of testing suite we have. And if we have a known set of inputs and what the output should look like, and we've automated that whole process so we can kind of assess, the output, we can very quickly train ourselves on how to be better prompt engineers because we can change the prompt and see if we got more accurate or less accurate with our test document set. And over time, build that up. And then we hit it with the same prompt over and over again to guarantee consistency. And that gives us sort of a competence score. We're trying to get it a little bit closer to what the IDP tools use because that's what people are used to. But use it in a way that's solving unstructured data instead of the sort of semi-unstructured.
What about human in the loop? How do you determine when this should be involved in process automations that leverage GenAI outputs?
Yeah, it's kind of a multi-layered question. Look, the reason we're putting together, let's call it the confidence score for lack of a better term for now, but the reason we're getting to that is because when you're trying to design a process with human in the loop involved and trying to decide what level of inaccuracy is acceptable, you need that confidence score. You need to be able to assess business risk. If it's highly critical, client-facing process, then you're not going to be okay with a 95% accuracy because that 5% is going to hit, be exposed straight to customers. So being able to assess that business risk, whereas if it's something like shuffling emails around in different inboxes, depending on their category, if the human error rate's 5% and the bot error rate's 3%, then that's okay. Let's automate that and put ChatGPT as a straight-through processing. So that's part of it, is trying to have an understanding of accuracy and confidence in that accuracy, and then assessing it against the business risk and the kinds of recipients of whatever information is coming out of the model. I would say at this stage, almost all of them should have a human in the loop. Until they mature a bit more and they have a little bit more control over how creative they can be or not creative and all that sort of thing, we'll find, I think, 80+% will probably have some sort of human in the loop. I've got to interact with Blue Prism that we can use for that and that sort of thing.
Okay. Do you have an example of a recent customer engagement that you guys conducted where GenAI plus digital workers, that combination is making a huge difference?
Sure, yeah. We have a few, I think. The one that comes to mind is one where we have an insurance client. They're effectively giving a whole bunch of information into their underwriting department that needs to be examined so that they can assess risk on an organization and providing insurance to that organization. The formats that comes in is varying. So it can be in Excel, it can be in PDF form, it can be in Word sometimes, and varying structures. Sometimes it's tabulated, sometimes it's plain text, sometimes it's in the body of an email, all that sort of thing. And a lot of the time that these underwriters who are highly paid, very talented staff are just spending doing data transposition and transformation and looking for data points within their documents, some of which are, 40 pages long. That's all for one data point in there and that sort of thing. That's a lot of time from a very expensive resource. So to solve the problem, we're using a mix of Blue Prism, of the UX builder, sort of front end that we're talking about human in the loop again there, and ChatGPT to solve that problem. So the ingestion is handled by Blue Prism. It does the heavy lifting and pulling those documents in. We then use Blue Prism to send the prompt along with the information to ChatGPT. That prompt that you're talking about is one of the long ones. So it's paragraphs long that says,
I'm
look at
sure.
this information
Yeah.
here. And there's like, as we get more test documents, it's like, if you see this kind of document, then the information might be here. And it's literally that long. And give an example of the table we want it to print and all that sort of
Yeah.
thing. We get that information back from ChatGPT, use Blue Prism to structure it in a format that is readable. And then we do have a confidence score in that case where if it crosses a threshold, then it'll be presented to a user side by side, the original document and what ChatGPT's pulled out. And they can either edit it or fix it or say it's okay. If it's above the confidence threshold, it'll go straight through and it goes into the system of record. So multiple technologies in there, obviously, and it's quite a complex process, but the value is massive because you've got highly valuable resources not doing that grunt work. And the consistency is actually quite good. It probably is not good to me in public, but it surprised me how accurate and how good these things are at pulling out data. They have limitations, but it's pretty incredible what they can do.
That summarization capability of GenAI does seem to be increasing in importance. I'm hearing a lot more use cases that tap into that than the customer service kind of use case.
Those sorts of use cases mean more in different industries too. Like you can start to go into legal and accounting firms and some of those areas where it's just been too hard to structure that data because there's too much of it. And now you can address a lot of those use cases as well. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. And you mentioned a lot of different inputs into that automation, some PDFs, some other types of documents. Given that it's a language-based model, are you having to digitize some of those things, like use IDP?
Not in that case, but yes, in others. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So we have another one we're working on with Hyperscience for the data extraction.
Yep.
Again, the tables that it reads in consistent format and all that sort of thing. So we actually use ChatGPT there to rename headers and make sure that everything's in the right spot as it comes out of there. But with the first case I mentioned, that is all data that is already digitized. So even the PDFs that you can copy and paste the text out of the body of the document.
Yeah.
So it's in strings, but yes, we've got use cases where IDP is involved as well.
Okay. Well, it's super exciting to hear what you guys are doing in this space. And I can't wait to see how lots of our customers really start to take steps in this direction.
Yeah.
As we talked about, they're all getting pressure from their leadership teams to show some progress. So it'll happen one way or another.
I reflect on the early days of RPA because I was there for it, right? And the excitement back then, and it's the same sort of problem. There's pressure to do it. There's not necessarily a lot of the standards and frameworks are in place. So there's going to be a lot more failures and mistakes now as people are learning and trying to get it right from a structural point of view within your organization early is really important. So learning from your mistakes, building standards that cover for those is the faster you can do that, the more successful you're going to be, I think. Obviously, the primary difference here is that RPA was very business facing and that was where the excitement sat, whereas with ChatGPT, it's in the public sphere a lot more. And so everyone's talking about it. So there's probably a little bit of extra pressure that we didn't have back then.
Yeah. So Xavier, as we wrap up, any thoughts and predictions for the year, whether Gen AI or non-Gen AI? Would just love to hear what you're thinking about what we might see over the next 12 months.
Yeah. Look, I think there'll be a lot of cautionary. I mean, I kind of started to hit toward this before. There'll be some cautionary tales around GenAI, people who spend a lot of money on it and don't get much return because it's still in that experimental phase. So I think that's a big one. Basically, the theme of this whole discussion, which is a lot more value being derived from integrated solutions. We saw some of it last year. I think this year is the really big, I know personally some of our clients are getting budget and tuning their pipeline and opportunity finder groups to be able to tackle and look for IDP opportunities and GenAI opportunities and natural language understanding opportunities and that sort of thing. So I think there'll be a lot more of that. There's probably going to be a corresponding lack or glut of talent to deliver that work. It's RPA, core RPA is very accessible. It's very easy to train people on. I've been around for a long time, so I'm biased, but I think it's very accessible technology that's easy to pick up, hard to master. Some of these other ones, you're starting to require data scientists for who also understand the technology and the intelligent automation space. And trying to connect all of those together is very difficult. So the solution architect role and some of those more specific capabilities are going to be hard to find. So trying to get that talent, foster that talent, fill in with partners, obviously a bit self-serving here, but fill in with partners where you need to help build that talent is going to be massively important.
Very good. Well, Xavier, it is such an exciting and highly dynamic space to be in, this intelligent automation industry, especially with GenAI in the mix. And I think Reveal Group is positioned for even more success in 2024. So I really appreciate you joining me today. Thanks for being here on the podcast. It's always fun talking with you. And I wish you and your colleagues all the best.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to Transform Now. For more insightful discussions on digital transformation and more, check out our podcast channel where you'll find all of our previous episodes. And to make sure you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player. And if you like what you've heard, please leave us a review. For more information about digital transformation and the future of work, check out blueprism.com to learn how SS&C Blue Prism's digital workforce is enabling enterprise transformation now.